have here today Monica from Lloyd's. Monica will be talking with us about DIY projects that she's involved with. So Monica, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Monica Stanco, and I'm the Senior Diversity and Inclusion Manager at Lloyd's. Very, very nice to be here with you today.
Thank you so much, Monica. Monica, we will go over the 3 questions that we prepared for you, so you can go and explain a little bit more what Lloyd's is doing in terms of diversity and inclusion. So the first question is, how would you describe your role in non-corporate words?
Yes, so I'll tell you sort of the official way, and then I'll tell you sort of what drives me. So my role as the Senior Diversity and Inclusion Manager is number 1 to make sure that we lead by example internally. So Lloyd's is, for those of you who are not familiar with us, it's the oldest insurance and reassurance marketplace. We're based in London. We are headquartered in London, but we have offices all over the world. So the way we operate, we're a bit like a convener for the insurance world. So that's why it's really important for us that we use our power as a leader, as a convener, to also get other insurance companies on board with diversity and inclusion. So we lead by example, first of all, looking after our own employees, getting our house in order, so to speak, and then do a lot of work to support other insurance companies as they progress on their diversity and inclusion journey. But then to describe my role in non-corporate words, for me, it's very, very much about recognizing that talent is universal, but opportunity is not. So how do we make sure that we are able to spot talent and that once that talent is in the organization, that they're able to thrive and go as far as their talents will take them? I think there are a lot of really amazing talented people in the world, but because they don't live in the right country or in the right part of the country, or because of how they look like or their accent or their socioeconomic background as well, all sorts of things can impact your ability to be successful in life that actually have nothing to do with your talent, with hard work, with your hard work. So my aim is to make sure that no matter who you are, if you're smart, you are able to have the career that you want.
Perfect. Yeah, 100%, 100%. Thanks for sharing your point of view. So please, what is your point of view in diversity and inclusion?
So one of the things that really drive me is that when we look around leadership tables, whether we're talking politics, whether we're talking corporations, even schools, we don't have diverse leaderships and diverse leadership teams, which means that a lot of decisions that take place and a lot of the products that get created don't actually take into consideration the point of view of the people that actually are consuming those products or are impacted by those decisions. So for me, what's really important is that we make sure that when decisions are made, we have diverse people around the table, so we get their feedback and we don't somehow forget about the consequences of what if we roll something out and this can have a detrimental impact on someone, or when we create a product, what opportunity are we missing here, right? If we're launching a product, let's say in China, we better have some people from China around the table making giving their feedback, making decisions to make sure that it lands well in that region, in that country. So I think that when you have that diversity around the table, you have better products, better services, and as an organization, you are more successful. And as a country, actually, you are more successful as well because you're able to draw on all talent that's out there.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Could you share with us, Monica, please, a successful project that you've developed within Lloyd's in terms of diversity and inclusion?
Yes, so I can share a little bit about the work that we've been doing on inclusive recruitment. in partnership with our talent acquisition team, who have been phenomenal. We at Lloyd's have a gender and leadership target. So we're trying to make sure that we have gender balance at the top, and also that we reach our 1 in 3 ethnicity hiring ambition. So that's about making sure that 1 in 3 people that we hire, at least 1 in 3 people that we hire at Lloyd's, new hires, come from an ethnically diverse background. So in order to reach those ambitions and targets, we put together an action plan on recruitment. So I can share a little bit of what are some of the things that we've done as part of that. So number one, we looked at the entire sort of cycle of application. Attraction, job description, what happens when you have your interviews, and then all the way to the decision-making stage. So at the sort of attraction point, we partner up with some organizations that do job boards that are specifically designed for people from diverse backgrounds. So we've worked, for instance, with Race Equality Matters. We worked with Versida, which is sort of a job board for all sort of D&I aspects, strands. We work with ICANN, which is one of the partner networks for the market that focuses on ethnicity and culture. So we post all our jobs there. I also review every job description that we create to make sure we don't use language that can be biased or that can put off people without us wanting actually to do that. So to give you an example, you'll see in a lot of job descriptions out there that people use very sort of vague skills as part of their requirements. One of those examples is, we're looking for someone with excellent communication skills, this is extremely vague, and it can mean completely different things to different people. And what good communication skills would look like for a PA, for instance, or an apprentice, would be very different from the comm skills that would be required for a CEO, for instance, or a head of comms, right? So I try to encourage hiring managers and talent acquisition partners to be very specific and very clear about what exactly are those skills that you're looking for. When you say communication skills, do you actually mean ability to deal with media? Do you actually mean ability to chair a meeting, to do a presentation, to deliver training, to write reports? What do you mean? Because if you're just that vague, it's very hard to understand as a candidate if you're a good fit, and as a talent acquisition partner to actually find people for your shortlist, because they won't know what you're looking for either. They will have their own idea about what good communication skills can be. So I look at every job description from that perspective. I also check out if I see something like, we're looking for someone with 5 years of experience. That age discrimination. Someone can have 3 years of experience and still have had a much bigger impact in the organization than someone with 5 years of experience. So I've tried to challenge people on those sort of biases that they have. Another thing that we've done around inclusive recruitment was to promote some of our role models that we have in the organization. We're lucky that we have quite a lot of diverse talent, and we try to sort of push them out there. We've created employee advocacy videos, so short videos with colleagues from different parts of the business, different levels, and their sort of career journey, to share a little bit about why they love working for us, what are some of the things that they do outside their day job to contribute to the culture at Lloyd's, and just to give people a flavor of their role as well. And the goal of that was to really show potential candidates that there are already people like them in the organization, and also show them there are loads of great ways that they can do to get involved with the culture and the D&I work here at Lloyd's. And I think that they were received really well. by our colleagues as well internally. They really love those videos. They felt like, oh, like it's nice that we're celebrating our people by highlighting them on our social media and our website. We also collect data. So um, we're trying to track where the issues might be. Like if we see that we don't have a lot of candidates, for instance, at the final stages, we're trying to figure out where are they dropping off. Is it because they're not applying, or is it because they are applying but maybe they're not invited to the interview, or maybe they are invited to the interview but they don't get the offer? So where exactly through that funnel or to the application process are people dropping off, and then create interventions for that. Another thing to mention is that all our hiring managers get trained up on inclusive recruitment. So it's like a half-day training, quite intensive, where we go through the entire stages of an application process, practice. They get to practice interviewing as well, and they don't. And for the UK, they can't actually interview without going through this training. So they have to do the training, do the homework. There's some homework as well, so they have to do that, and only then we send them off and we let them. No matter how senior you are, like only then you are allowed to interview people. And you said, why it's successful? Well, our numbers looking pretty good. So 58% of our exco leadership team are women. So that's great because women represents 51% of the population. And then from an ethnicity perspective, 25% of our colleagues are from an ethnically diverse background. So again, this number is much higher than the insurance market as a whole, and much higher as the UK as a whole. Not as does not fit London because we are based in London. So ideally, I would match talent in London, but we are doing better than the UK. What the UK census says as a whole, in terms of the talent that's out there. And then from a disability perspective, around 12% of our colleagues have a disability. About 3% of our colleagues identify as coming from a LGBT plus background. 20 plus percent come from a lower socioeconomic background. So we're seeing that all these interventions that we've put in place from an inclusive recruitment perspective have really paid off. So yeah, we're really proud of that because we've basically ticked all our all our targets.
That's really nice. It's really nice, and it sounds quite impressive. Thanks for sharing, Monica. I'm gonna add up one extra question here for us today, and then if you can share your thoughts on this. So, what do you think that will look like the DUI position within companies within the next 10 years, for example? Do you think that this is gonna become more common? That things are gonna develop? What are your thoughts on this?
Interesting question, because I think there has been in some parts of the world there's been a bit of pushback on DNI. So DNI has been around for quite a few years, but it has its sort of ups and downs in terms of companies being showing real interest and really putting it on their agenda. So we've seen in the UK there was a moment when the gender pay gap reporting was introduced, when I think that was a pivotal moment in diversity and inclusion, because that's when we've seen a lot of CEOs sort of starting to pay a lot of attention to it. Like DNI was on the agenda of the CEOs because that's the type of information you put on your website. So there was a lot of interest in that. And then another sort of really important moment was around 2020, 2021, when we had the Black Lives Matter movement. And all of a sudden, we've seen a lot of companies making a lot of statements, making a lot of commitments, hiring a lot more people into these roles. However, I would say that was followed by a backlash. So in the last year or so, we've seen in the US in particular, there's been sort of I would say organized movement against diversity and inclusion that's been gaining track. And it's really disheartening to see that. And we've seen people, there have always been people that sort of disagreed with DNI, but I think what's different now is that it's very organized. and it sort of started to enter the legal space. So affirmative action, for instance, in universities has been struck down. And for those of you who are not in the US, basically universities were able to implement certain actions to make sure there was a correction, because historically universities have uh, not allowed, like up to a certain year, like they did not allow people from certain backgrounds to study in their university. So that's why affirmative action. So, and for women as well, women were not allowed to study at universities for many years. So affirmative action was basically introduced to correct that historical injustice that has happened. And yeah, and now universities can't take any more action around that, or not, at least not in such a direct way. And a lot of companies are afraid that that sort of legislation is going to apply to the private sector as well. For the moment, it has not, but companies are sort of watching what's been happening with affirmative action. I think in the UK, I would say diversity and inclusion is still going quite strong. It's still something that is on the agenda of many organizations. In insurance, actually, we have something called the culture survey. So it's a survey that we sent out to employees in the insurance market, in the Lloyd's insurance market, and we asked people all sorts of questions around culture. And one of the questions that we ask is around what more do you want to see in the market, and diversity and inclusion is one of the top things that people want to see more of. So I would say that at least in insurance, I don't see a retreat from DNI. I see a continuous push for DNI, which is really good. Well, you
Okay,
said like
perfect.
how the role is going to evolve. I think it's
Yeah,
going
exactly.
to have more ESG into it, more of that ESG, social impact, culture, sort of early careers, maybe sort of well-being as part of their remit.
Their main scope. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Now I'm gonna open the participants' microphone. So if they want to join us and ask questions directly for you, I've seen that some people already asked a few questions here in the chat. So maybe if you can follow that order. So I'm gonna unmute the microphone here. Guys, feel free to ask Monica. Check if you have access to the microphone.
Hi, Monica. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. First of all, thank you for coming, taking your time and talking to us. Like it was really an eye opener. My question is, I recently completed my MSc in Human Resource Management from Cardiff University, and I had 3 years of experience of working as an HR in my home country, that is India.
Mhm.
So while applying for an HR opportunity in the UK, is my home country's experience counted, or do I come under as a fresher, or at an entry level job?
So in DNI, so you've worked in DNI on like a DNI role or
Uh,
HR.
so so basically, DNI is not a big thing yet in India. So as
Mm-hmm.
an HR, I used to look some parts of DNI,
Mm-hmm.
and like my job role was basically doing every aspect of HR at once. In India, HR is like the branches of HR are not specified yet. A person who's
Mm-hmm.
doing HR is responsible to do every aspect of it. So I would say yes, there was some part of DNA involved.
Mm-hmm. So what's your sort of next move that you want to make? Is it an HR role in the UK or a DNI role?
So personally, I am more interested in DNI or something that helps me, pass on the psychology knowledge that I have. So maybe in training
Mm-hmm.
development or DNI. But since
Mm-hmm.
as I said, I'm trying to, apply at every DNI jobs that I get, but still I'm not hearing back from them, or maybe, I'm not called for an interview. So that makes me question that is it because my Indian experience is not considered as impactful as it is, or like what is the issue here?
So just to just to say, like DNI roles are notoriously extremely competitive. So if you haven't heard back, It's probably just because they have so many applications. Not that there's anything like objectively wrong with your application. So I remember like a few years ago when I was looking for roles, and it was sort of the golden age of DNI, like 22 years ago. There were so many, 2, 3 years ago, there were so many DNI roles compared to the previous years. And I remember a recruiter told me that they had 900 applications for one job, for one DNI manager role. Another one told me that they had 650 applications for that role that I was shortlisted for. So they are extremely, extremely competitive. I'm not sure if it's like you see the same number of applications for all roles, but for DNI roles, there definitely seems to be a lot of interest in this topic. So just to give you maybe advice on how to make your application stand out, I think the fact that you do have some HR experience, general HR experience, actually helps. A lot of people that do work in DNI have come from an HR background. I have not. I've kind of moved my way up from intern to senior manager. But there are a lot of people that sort of feel like you did, like a generalist HR role or recruiter role, and then they switch to a DNI manager role. So I would say in terms of what you want to highlight in your application is data analysis. If you've maybe that's really important, like policy development, that's something that's also a skill that's really important. Get familiar with the Equality Act and legislation, particularly for the UK. If you're looking at the global role, legislation in different parts of the world. Anything else that you because you've worked in India, maybe you might want to like use that to your advantage and target certain companies that have offices in India as well, because then you can show that you understand the culture there.
Okay.
Yeah, but so global companies like tech companies, for instance, a lot of them have offices in India, for instance. So use that to your advantage, basically. Um, um, yeah, policy, data, those are sort of the things that like networks. If you have in your current role, if you have the opportunity to run an employee network, that's also really useful. So those are some of like benchmarking exercise, Word applications. Um, yeah, those would be sort of my tips to go to, and network as well. Get to like look at strategies from other companies and see what they're doing. So when you go to an interview, you sort of speak their language, so to speak. So you
Okay.
understand what are their like main things that they're focusing on. But in terms of application wise, like make sure to highlight your experience in policies, recruitment. The fact that you understand different parts of HR, it's actually really useful. So make sure to highlight that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. That was really helpful.
Thank you so much for participating. We had two quite interesting questions from Nicola Giles. Maybe you can make one of them to Monica. Would you be up for it? Can you post it on the chat?
I apologize. I'd prefer to post on the chat because I have severe anxiety.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. So, Monica, maybe if we can check here on the chat what Nicola asked us. So, the first question is, let me read it for you. Hi, Monica. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. As soon as I graduate, how would you best recommend starting a career in diversity and inclusion and the steps to take towards this goal?
Mm-hmm. So there are various ways that you can get your foot in DNI. One, I've seen more organizations sort of offering DNI sort of coordinator role, assistant role, internship. So that's one way if you want this to be your career. Um, However, you can do like the previous person was saying, you can start off by doing something in HR. And then once you're in an organization, it's particularly useful if you're like in a really big organization, because they would usually have a DNI team already in place. So you can work closely with them on DNI projects, or you can become the chair of an employee network. And again, I've seen people move into DNI after chairing an employee network for a year, being part of an employee network committee for a year or two. So they kind of learn some of that. In terms of sort of certifications or degrees, again, people come from different, like some people study business, some people study cultural studies. I studied women's history and American studies. Other people studied economics. So I think it's quite varied, but it's definitely helpful to study something like cultural studies, social psychology, business, because it can give you that broader understanding and deeper understanding of diversity and inclusion and some things that happen in society that actually have an impact in the workplace as well. There are also certifications, but you don't have to. Like most people in the United don't actually have a certification. I have one from Cornell University, which I asked my organization to pay for. So again, once you're in a big organization, like take advantage of those, like that support that they offer and get your certification, whether there is CIPD or DNI certification. There are things like that they can do for you, which can help upskill you. I would also say in DNI, it's really important to be very confident doing public speaking. As you can see now, I'm not necessarily confident, but I'm really passionate about this topic. So if you probably asked me to talk about something else, I would not be so excited. But because I love this, I'm okay to do it. But public speaking, delivering and trainings, those are good skills to have as well, which you can practice in any role, almost any role that you might have.
Perfect. Valentine, you want to ask your question? You have your hands up. I don't know if you have a question to ask to Monica.
Hi, can everyone hear
Hi.
me? Hi, Monica. Thank you very much for the section. I was just looking at the topic of this section, how HR can enhance diversity. But in my experience, I did a master's in international human resource management. And in my experience in the job market as an international student, and I believe that most of the people who are tuned into this meeting are sort of international students as well. I might be wrong, but I'm speaking based on myself. I have realized that diversity, as we say diversity, but what is diversity and what is HR people doing to enhance this diversity when it comes to talent attraction as well? Are you attracting talent just based on the country, just like the UK, or are you attracting talents in terms of diversity outside the country itself? We've seen situations where people apply for jobs and we have on the checklist questions being asked about visa sponsorship. And that in itself, going through the ATS already screens you out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm asking this question because we as HR professionals sit in that position to sort of speak to the key stakeholders within the organization as to how we can make this more better for international students as well. But I don't understand why this has become a paramount problem where international students are finding it difficult to find jobs within organizations, even assistant jobs. You were saying something about probably just doing something in DNI as getting maybe a coordinator or an assistant. It's even much more difficult to even get such roles because you have a conversation with a recruiter and the first question they're asking you is, are you going to need visa sponsorship? And that already screens you out. The next conversation is going to be, we're so sorry, we cannot move forward with you. So I'm asking this question in Lloyd's, how are you as an HR, as a DNI leader within your organization, how are you tackling this challenge within your organization?
Yeah, so first of all, I'd like to say that I feel the pain of international students and the challenges with visas. As you can hear from my accent, I'm not actually British or American. So I studied in the US. I was there on a scholarship. I wasn't allowed to study or stay after, sorry, I was allowed to study. I wasn't allowed to work. And I had to leave after I finished my program because I couldn't get a work visa. It's very difficult to get a green card there. And I'm here because I was a European citizen, and I came here before Brexit happened, and that's how I got like good timing basically for me, and then became a British citizen. But I know it's very difficult for those who don't have the right to work in the country to get a job, and I think it has become more difficult in the last few years. What we do from a Lloyd's perspective, I think we do what most organizations do. Unfortunately, this is not up to us. There are certain restrictions that the government has imposed, has created, has introduced that are we can't really do anything about it. Although there are exceptions for maybe some organizations might make exceptions for sort of very senior leaders, like skills and roles that are very hard to find in the country. But yeah, other than that, it's more difficult, particularly most organizations, to actually get you. There are costs, there are quite a lot of costs involved to get permits for people, and also you usually need to have a specialist, someone who actually knows how to do this. And most organizations don't have a specialist in that area. So yeah, it's difficult. It's not something that as far as I know, we don't sponsor a lot of visas. I think it's mostly for people that were here somehow before the new regulations started. What we focus on is making sure that if we do have people from different cultural backgrounds in the organization, that they have a good experience, they're able to progress. We create an inclusive environment for them. We also have global offices as well, so we have some internal mobility between our employees here in the UK, for instance, people going to spend 6 months or a year in China or Singapore, and then come back, or people going from Brussels to London, for instance. Yeah, I understand from an early careers perspective, it's a challenge for a lot of organizations to hire people that don't have a work permit already.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Monica.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Monica.
Valentin.
I just want to say something else before we continue. Sorry, guys. So, I understand what you're saying about the challenges of hiring people without work permit within the UK. But just like I said, this meeting, and I can tell, and a lot of people who are on the platform, the Genius Web platform, is typically international students as well. And that platform is sort of, it's very good, to be honest. And I want to say that as a HR leader within your organization who has had such an experience as well, you mentioned something about the US, studying in the US and not having the opportunity to stay back and work in the US as well. Now, my question to you is, within the Lloyd Bank, I understand the restrictions that the organization, that the government has put, but within your organization as a diversity leader in terms of attracting talent within diverse background, because diverse background, when we talk about diverse background, we're talking about people from all walks of life, from different nations and countries. So that's the diversity we're talking about. What are you doing specifically? What programs or projects are you doing specifically to actually bring these people into the doorstep of Lloyd, to say, okay, you can specialize in some certain area, and then this can be enhanced, and the organization can see that you have this quality, and we can actually sponsor you. I think that's what diversity is supposed to be. What programs or initiatives are you doing or bringing in Lloyd's that can help international students to boost diversity?
We have an early careers program and a graduate program. So we have apprenticeships and graduate programs, which attract quite diverse candidates. Like those cohorts are really diverse from a ethnicity and gender perspective in particular. So we're really lucky in that sense that we have thousands and thousands of applications for those programs. So our data does not suggest that this is a challenge for us. And I think it's because, like I was saying earlier, as part of our inclusive recruitment initiatives, we review the guidance, we train all our hiring managers to make sure there is no bias. In the process, we highlight role models. Once they're in the organization, we have mentoring and reverse mentoring programs to make sure they settle in. We also, for early careers, which are young people at the beginning of their journey, they have the option. We give them sort of practical support. So, if they need a chair, if they need a desk, not everyone, if you're a senior leader, you probably don't think about that. But if you're a student, that's something that can help in terms of budgeting, at least. So we're trying to highlight role models and also offer some practical support once they're in the organization.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll be taking one more question before we finish this session today. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to answer to everybody. So Jerry, I think that you raised your hand first. So do you want to come in and ask the last question to Monica, please?
Well, hi, Monica. Thank you for your time and resource and all. And yeah, I just wanted to ask you regarding a question. Like you mentioned before that you started off as an intern while you joined Lloyd's, which is a great thing. I mean, you're at present looking at your progression in your career is something to be admired. But the thing is, I mean, regardless of your position, for what is your opinion, or what would be your suggestion to a person who is finding it difficult to get into a job market, like with regard to current changes in regulations? So obviously, if he or she or they or who can't get into the job market at present, what what would you suggest, like after a certain, maybe they could be people who are working in different sectors or in a different line of job or something like that due to the current regulations, but let's say that person is still interested to get into the job, and what would you suggest that for such a person to start his or her career again, because at that point of time, maybe let's say 3 or 4 years after, if that person is still interested to join let's say Lloyd's or any other big company, so uh, I mean, obviously he has this huge gap in his career which is going to affect his career, I mean, joining back to the game or getting back into the game, or so still he or she should be considering to join as a graduate or an intern or something like that. But so this is one of the dilemma that I have been facing, because it's basically my story, but and I'm not finding it difficult to join as an intern back again, because I've got a minor experience, and that is one thing which I find it difficult to get back into the job. And this is not only focused on HR. It could be any other role, because I have done my master's in finance, and I've worked as an audit associate for a particular company. But then I left for higher studies and finding it difficult. So yeah, this is my question. I hope you've got my dilemma. So hoping to find an answer.
Um, so my career also it didn't, although it seems like it kind of went stage by stage, it wasn't actually like that. I think a lot of immigrants, the reality is a lot of immigrants, when they come to a new country, they will have to start from scratch. I worked since I was 18 in some shape or form. When I came into the UK in my late 20s, I started from scratch. I started as the bottom of the bottom. Nobody cared that I had, even if I studied that with a master's degree in the US, finished with perfect GPA. I already had some work experience, interned at the UN, interned for the European Union. No, the reality is nobody cared about that. They wanted to see UK experience, and there is a lot of bias. I'm gonna have to tell you, there is a lot of bias that probably both recruiters and hiring managers have. They want to see that experience. So for me, what helped was actually starting at the bottom and moving my way up. And it's a sad reality, and I really wish it wasn't like that. But that is unfortunately the experience of a lot of immigrants, particularly immigrants that don't come from English-speaking, highly developed countries. So if you're from the US, for instance, or Australia, you might have a very different experience than someone who comes from the Middle East, Eastern Europe, Africa, etc. I want to encourage you to tell you that there is nothing wrong with you. I've been there. I know, I know the biases. I know the frustrations. There's, especially at early stages, there is a lot of competition in general. So there will be loads of really good applications from everyone. Add that the fact that there is a bias. The reality is there is a bias. And my advice is get what you can, build that experience as much as possible, and you will see that you'll actually eventually, even though you may feel that it's a bit slower in the beginning, you will eventually get where you need to be. But grab those opportunities, whatever opportunity it's given to you, make the best of that. Even though you say, well, it's it's beneath me, I have too much experience to do this role. Start, get that opportunity, impress them, and prove them that you're so good they can't ignore you. And I would love to hear experiences from other people on the call as well on this. But what I wanted to say is, like, I wanted to reassure you that there is nothing wrong with you. There is bias, unfortunately, that a lot of organizations kind of without realizing. So my advice is, what helped me was actually because I come from a different culture, and my parents don't come necessarily from, they don't work for big corporations, so they couldn't really help in any way. What I did was approach people on LinkedIn that were in my area of work. I asked for 20 minutes of their time. I brought my CV with me, and had a conversation about their role, and asked them, can you please look at my CV and tell me how can I improve this? Where should I be editing? And some people gave me such good advice. It was simple things like, move this section at the bottom, focus more on your experience, not your education, highlight these things. There are too many bullet points here. You have to quantify, use a lot of very specific numbers, I've organized an event for 500 people and 95% of the feedback was positive. So try to quantify it as much as possible. So yeah, you might not have support in your immediate network, but there might be support maybe at your university, for instance. I went to Columbia University where I studied. They had a career center. Again, I went with my CV there and asked them, help me edit this. And I went to probably at least 10 versions of that CV before I actually, got something that was actually useful to anyone. But find mentors, even informal mentors, reach out to people, ask them to have a look, and give them the chance to help you, because you'll see that there are a lot of people that are actually quite happy to support, especially young people. Everyone wants to support the next generation of talent.
Monica, thank you so much for sharing all your thoughts with us. It was a pleasure having you here and talking about this topic. In name of Joinrs, thank you again. And
I also have a question. I want to ask a short question. Do you have an open position in your company right now? I have experience in SEO doing projects. I have experience in manual QA and automation QA Java. I have experience in Java C++. I did projects in Python and Django, creating desktop and web applications. I also have experience in JavaScript, creating web and mobile applications.
Unfortunately, we don't have more time for another question this time, Javor, but we're going to have another few online experience coming up. But Monica, if you want to maybe tell them about the careers website or anything to double check.
Yes. So all our roles are listed on our LinkedIn, Lloyd's LinkedIn, and also our careers website as well. So everything is there, and you can apply directly.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody, again, and we will see each other soon. Thank you. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you.